Gracing the pinnacle of many people's best of Game Boy top 10 lists is the 1993 classic action RPG, Link's Awakening. The first portable Zelda title recreated all the charm, the ingenuity, the creativity, and the feeling of pure adventure found in its predecessors, all the while set to one of the most immersive backdrops to ever come out of an 8-bit game. So strong is its legacy that it has had a complete remake for the Nintendo Switch, as well as being one of the launch titles for Nintendo Switch Online's Game Boy collection. With the launch of the Game Boy Color, we got a revamped, colorized version called Link's Awakening DX, which also became one of the highest selling games for that system, alongside the new duo of Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons adventures. This brought full color, a new dungeon, and a few other little side quests that ensured you'd take another trip to the mystical Isle of Koholint. With that in mind, I thought I'd supplement the main Monday to Friday show with this extra Saturday episode. We'll be exploring basically everything this game has to offer, and hopefully along the way, you'll discover tips and tricks to help you 100% Link's Awakening DX. So, as in virtually all Legend of Zelda games, you're playing as Link. Your ship has capsized during a storm, and you washed up unconscious on Koholint Beach, where you were found by this young girl called Marin, who looks suspiciously like Zelda. First thing to do when you wake up and hop out of bed is go talk to Tarin here. He'll give you your shield. Now, it'll automatically get equipped into the B slot, but you can put it into the A slot if you'd prefer. So you see those two sections down the bottom that say B and A. You can basically equip, I think there's something like 15 to 20 different tools or something you can get in the game. We're going to be getting all of them, of course. And you can equip anything you like into B or A, so really it depends on your own personal preference whether you prefer your sword to be in A or B. Or for the early parts of the game, we will be keeping the sword, for the most part, in slot A, unless we need two different tools at once, which you do actually sometimes. After the halfway point, we probably won't be using the sword as much because there are actually better weapons in the game, and we rarely use the shield at all, funnily enough. First thing to do is hop down these cliffs here. You can't actually attack anything just yet, but you can push things out of the way with your shield if you hold B down. Again, it's something you only really do at the start of the game. We won't be using the shield much at all. Of course, it's personal preference. It depends on how you choose to fight. So there's a suspiciously translucent sword in the sea here. And this is the first time that we meet Owl. He's kind of like our sage, our guide. He's gonna walk us through this game and basically tell us where we need to go and give us some little lore details along the way as well. Basically, the concept of the game is you have to find these 8 different instruments in these dungeons with the idea that you can't leave the island until you wake the windfish, which is a massive killer whale looking thing. And to wake the windfish, you have to gather all of these instruments together and play them at the same time. And that's the only way that you can wake the windfish. So as you see here, I'm sort of shifting the sword and the shield around between my 2 active item slots, just to show you that you can really put them wherever you want. Alright, it might be a little early in an RPG to maybe start grinding, but here I would suggest for the next couple of steps that you wander around killing some enemies and stuff. You're gonna need about 50 or so rupees, maybe not that many, maybe sort of 35 to 40, just for the next couple of little mini games and stuff like that. Okay, so here you see I picked up a Guardian Acorn. Now what these do, apart from changing the music to a frankly rather annoying little loop, the Guardian, there's 2 things that can drop. One is called the Guardian Acorn. Now this, as it says in game, reduces your damage by half, so you'll take half as much damage as you normally would. Now there's another one which we'll see all the time as well, called a Piece of Power, which is like a triangle, sort of like a Triforce kind of thing, I guess. And what that does is it increases your damage by 2, which is really, really helpful. Now, one of the first side quests I'm going to introduce, and it's something that we'll be picking up on all the way through the game, really, whenever it's the most convenient or when things become available, are these things called Secret Seashells. Now, there are 26 of these hidden throughout the game. You can't obtain all of them straight away. Some of them you'll need various tools and things to get to. Obviously, you don't have to do this. This is a completely optional side quest, but you'll find some accidentally anyway. It's inevitable. Now, the first one of these that we're going to find is in the home village, Mabe Village. If you go to the screen between the shop and the Trendy game, there's a large patch of sort of overgrown weeds. Now, if you slash through all these, which you're going to do out of curiosity anyway, I'm sure, you will find a secret seashell, and that's the first one, probably the easiest one in the game to get, let's be fair, but that's the first one out of 26. Now, seeing as this is a 100% walkthrough, we're going to be getting every heart piece in the game, of course. And, like the secret seashell, the first one of these is really easy to find. As you're walking back into the village, you'll see it like a wishing well. Once you've got your sword, you can slash these bushes down, and then basically just jump down, and you're right next to a piece of heart. So there you go. You can see how many you've got by looking at the start menu there. See, I've got 1 out of 4. Once I get 4, it'll give me an extra heart container. Okay, now the first sort of mini-game, this is one of the reasons you needed those rupees for, is a little fishing game, and we're going to get our second heart piece already. We haven't even left the main village yet. So what you have to do here, you cast your little lure thing. The fish that you're looking to get is the one under the cliff there. Now he's a bit of a bugger to get to. You probably will have to remove the other fish first. You're going to have to do this probably the whole 5 times, because else the little ones will just get your lure. It's easy to do, you just cast into the water, let it sink. You can move it towards you by pressing the arrow keys. And then once the fish is attracted to it, eventually, just mash A and B as quickly as you can, and then you just pull him ashore, and you get a bunch of money and a second heart piece. And there you go. And you've completely fished this guy dry and probably ruined his business, which is, you know, awfully considerate. Now, the next minigame is this one. This is a pain. It's what's called a trend. He calls it a trendy game. I don't see what's trendy about it. It's basically one of those arcade games that you put all your money in until you don't have it anymore when you're trying to impress a date or something. There's a little doll in the middle of that. He looks awful familiar, doesn't he? Yeah, there's a few little cameos from Super Mario in this game. Now, Yoshi is the only one that you need. You don't need to do the rest of it. It's good if you're wanting to grind for a bit more money. Those red rupees there are like 30 each or something like that. But yeah, you need Yoshi here, because there is a bit of a side quest, but it's a necessary side quest. You have to do it. So yeah, like I say, if you're needing to grind for a bit of money, there's a pretty surefire technique to win every time. I mean, the timing doesn't change on this game. It's not like it doesn't try to cheese you or anything like that. What you want to do, I'm tracking this rupee here. Now, when it gets to there, hold B until your crane is over this corner, and then immediately just tap the A button immediately after. It will descend, and then there you go. Every single time that'll work. The timing doesn't actually change on this game at all, so if you can get that timing down, I'm sure that's not the only way to time it, but that's how I do it. Anyway, the point of getting that Yoshi doll is to set up a chain of events called the Trading Quest. First thing you do, this crying baby here, you need to placate him by giving this Yoshi doll to the mother, who will then swap it for this ribbon, because that's a fair trade, right? And the point is, through the game, I think there are 10 or 11 steps or something like that. Eventually, you'll get something pretty cool at the end of it, which you actually need to complete one of the final dungeons. Now with a ribbon, you go into this house here, to the small annex on the side, and there's this very vain ball thing. She'll trade you the bow for this can of dog food. Now what the heck could you possibly want to do with a can of dog food? Well, descend these cliffs again, and then when you get to this part, just go right. Instead of going to the beach, just go right along the cliff tops here. And there's a very eccentric crocodile thing, lives in this house here, who collects a load of bananas for some reason. Well, his real passion is canned food. So you give him this can of food, he eats it without even opening the thing, which can't be good for your digestive tract. And in return, he'll give you these bananas. Now, who likes bananas? Well, you'll have to wait to find out, because that's the end of the trading game for now. We'll pick it up in a later episode. But for now, go north to the Mysterious Wood, where you meet our owl friend again. He tells you where to find the first dungeon key. I'm trying not to cut out screens, so if you're wanting to follow the direction, rather than me showing you the map every 10 seconds, I try to show every screen that I walk into so you can follow it step by step rather than getting lost. Okay, the first thing to do is go into this tunnel here. It looks like a log tunnel. Now the blue crystals, you can slash those with your sword, and then the boulders just move out of the way. And there you get 50 rupees. Very cool. There's another heart piece here. You can't get it just yet. Or for a little while yet, actually. We'll have to come back to that much later on. Out the other side of the tunnel, pick this mushroom up, or toadstool. Because to access the key in Mysterious Forest, you have to get past this mischievous raccoon. So you need this mushroom to get him out of the way before you're even able to get to the tail key. Throughout the map, often in caves, but not always, you'll find one of these angel pools. What these do is just basically refill your entire health. They're very useful. Unfortunately, there aren't any bottles in this game, so you can't capture one of the fairies to use later. But there is something that sort of replaces that in a way. Okay, we'll ignore that cave for now, because you can't get in there just yet. Go a couple of screens to the right. And again, there's another heart piece there, which we can't get yet. Now, don't attack these things with your sword or anything that makes contact, because you get electrocuted like that. I'm sure you've seen these in other Zelda games. But there's this kind of gnarly, haunted-looking house thing. And there's this crazy witch lady. And she needs a toadstool to make you your first other tool, which is the magic powder. Give it to her. She makes you your first batch of this magic powder. Now, this magic powder does quite a lot of different things. You can put it in empty torches like this, and it will light up a room. You can sprinkle it on enemies. It's pretty hard to do, but you can. And also, later on, you can increase the amount of bombs and arrows and things like that that you can carry using this magic powder. We'll show you that when we get to it. So for now, we'll go back into the Mysterious Forest, and we're going to go find this pesky little raccoon guy. I think he's a raccoon anyway. So if you don't have the magic powder, you go north from this screen, you'll see this raccoon. Now if you were to progress north again through here, you'd end up basically back at the start of the forest, and you can't progress. He's tricking you. So you sprinkle this magic dust on him, and he goes bonkers. Oh, and it's Taran. Taran likes to gather toadstools and quite often will get into trouble during his adventures. He's a bit of a clumsy idiot. And so there's your first dungeon key. Excellent. Now you can open the Tail Cave gate. Okay, so you see this shovel here. You need this reasonably soon, so try and buy this shovel before you go into the first dungeon, because else you're just going to have to backtrack and... I mean, this is only to get a Secret Seashell, so if you're not doing that quest, then don't worry about it, but you are going to have to grind to get your 200 rupees, and then also buy some bombs as well. Leave the shop, go back in, and there'll be some bombs on the shelf. Now, you do need these. Don't worry about the bow and arrow, that's really expensive, and it's going to take you forever to grind 980 rupees at this point, and you don't need it just yet anyway. We'll come back and get that in a couple of episodes' time. That's right, so you follow the beach path round, and you see this cave. This is Dungeon 1. And here we go, the first dungeon of the game. Several rooms in these dungeons, you can't leave them until you kill all of the enemies, or killing all the enemies will reveal a key or something like that. I'm sure you've played one of these before. The mechanics are very similar to Link to the Past, for instance. And of course, seeing as how this is a 100% walkthrough, I'm going to show you where to get the compass, the dungeon maps. There is something called a, you can get like a stone beak, which you put onto an owl somewhere in the dungeons, and then it'll give you hints and tips. I don't always collect all of those because you don't really need them. Quite often, the tip that you'll get from these owls relates to something you've done already, so it's kind of pointless, but I'll show you a couple just to give you an example, but I wouldn't worry too much about getting them. These bouncing skeletons are a little bit hard to hit sometimes. You have to swing your sword at them, and then quite often you have to hit them again just as they land to kill them. And then that's your dungeon map. Now we've got the map and the compass, this is what it looks like. The map fills in the grid, and the compass will tell you where the chests and stuff like that are. So we keep going west here. Now there's your piece of power that I talked about earlier. This increases your attack. I mean, it's completely random when these things drop. It's not like you can save them or anything. But if you can get one of those and take it into the boss fights, then you're laughing. We go up from here. You see this wall is kind of like broken. This is why we brought bombs with us. Not all bombable walls are delineated quite as nicely as that one. And there's your second Secret Seashell. Very good. Now you see this pit here. Each dungeon, not only does it have a heart piece that you can find with the boss, not only does it have one of the instruments, quite often as well, there's one of the useful tools that you need at various instances throughout the game. Now this one is related to those pits that we've seen. Okay, these three, well, they look a bit like penguins, but I don't know what they are. Basically what you have to do, you have to hit them so that the symbol on their chests is the same. It's not that hard to do. If you just count to 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, it's easy enough to do. Now, if you manage to get them to stop on the hearts, they'll drop a heart each as well, which can be nice to replenish your health. And this is where you get that beak that I was talking about. You plug it into this thing, but all it says is, turn away the spined ones with your shield. These things are a little dangerous, so I just usually just push that block there so you can pass it. You don't have to do that. You can manipulate it if you want. You don't have to actually do that. Now these flashing face things are a nightmare early on. Eventually we'll be getting a weapon that can destroy these. Now just push that block. That thing there actually tells you to push that block. But anyone who's played one of these games before knows to do that anyway. Now these are the spiny things we're talking about. If you hit them with a shield, they'll just turn upside down, and then you can just attack them. Now these things look familiar as well, don't they? You see, you can't collect that, but that's going to become very apparent how you actually get that in a short while. And this is the first kind of prize of the first dungeon, something called the Rock's Feather. You put it into your A or B slot, whichever you prefer. I usually just have my sword and the feather there. And that, when you press B, will now allow you to jump. Very useful. You can immediately just clear gaps like that without having to climb up the ladders. And also those pits that we saw earlier. You don't have to go all the way back through this room, you can just jump over here. It's great. And one of the things I really like about Link's Awakening with these tools and stuff that you get along the way, it's not just that you get something and then it's useful for that dungeon and then you never use it again. You will have to switch between all of your tools throughout the whole of the rest of the game. There's very few things that you only use once. Some dungeons, towards the later parts of the game, you actually need to use basically everything in your inventory at some point. It's really, really cleverly crafted. So now we're going to go fight a mini-boss, or mini-nightmare as they're called in this game, followed by our first actual boss. This is Rolling Bones. All you have to do is jump over his spiky thing and then attack him. Really simple. Could catch you out a few times at first, but that's the beauty of it. The boss fights are so well designed in this game. You get the fairy if you want to replenish your health. Now this thing here is a warp. What it'll do, once you defeat the mini-boss, another warp will open at the first room of the dungeon, which it'll let you go back if you need to replenish health or get new arrows and stuff like that. It'll just take you back to the outside. So this is the Nightmare Door, which is the main boss. And the first boss of the game is Moldorm. Anyone who's ever played a Zelda game has seen this thing before. You need to hit the shiny bit on his tail without jumping off the side, like that. Because if you do that, it takes you out of the fight, and you have to restart it, basically. It's a bit of a pain. So try and stay as central onto this platform as you can, and just... It's really erratic and fast, but if you've got the Rock's Feather equipped, you can jump over it and stuff. Or you can just do a swing shot like that. Now to do that, you hold down the attack button until your sword starts flashing, and then you just whip it around. And we get our first heart piece, so we now have 4 heart containers. And here's the full Moon Cello, which is the first of the 8 instruments we'll be collecting through the game. Here's a familiar motif, you'll get to know that melody. Now when you get the dungeon objective like that, you'll get teleported back outside. And you hear a mysterious voice that tells you to go to the swamp. Which is what we'll be doing next episode.